Hey y'all, welcome back to Convos with Bree. I'm Bree, BREE, and today is day 40 of the Visibility Challenge. And today is the day that I start reading my second book to y'all, Young Writers Day, Fragile Minds and the Adults That Mold Them. It starts off with a little bit of an opening, and I'm just going to read until it feels right. We'll chat about what I've read so far, and then every day until it's done, we'll just do the same. I hope you guys are looking forward to this as much as I am. Young Writers Day, Fragile Minds and the Adults That Mold Them by Just Bree. Story number 2. I am loving this even more than I anticipated, which is a lot, sparking me in new ways that I could have never even dreamed of before I started. And it has me thinking a lot about how I started writing. When I was a kid, I would write until I couldn't possibly write anymore. Young Writers Day was my absolute favorite day of the year. I am going to pretend that you know what I am talking about because I don't want to think about anyone growing up without the joy of Young Writers Day. Just because I love it so much, I'll tell you what I remember about it and why it was my favorite day. We got to use our entire class time to work on writing and illustrating our books. Once we were happy with them, it was off to the lamination station where we got to laminate and bind our books. It felt so permanent. These pages were sealed forever, bound together. I remember thinking, I made that. I was so proud. Then my favorite day of the year would arrive, the day we got to show these babies off. School wasn't normal that day. We would have a half day. The morning was filled with learning, which was really just talking about how excited we were for the afternoon. Our teacher would slip in a few learning moments here and there, but not really. We dressed up a little, and we were even allowed to invite people from our families. When everyone arrived and settled down, we got to share our stories. They were short stories, so everyone that wanted to read out loud got to. And afterwards, we got to show them off to everybody. I was bursting with excitement. It was the best day of the entire year. I loved every single thing about it. I knew the minute that I was able to participate in Young Writers Day that I was, in fact, made to write books. I have known it in my soul for as long as I can remember. It is honestly the longest that I have ever spent with an idea that I didn't execute or pass by. It just stays with me. I can't shake it. So I got curious. I know in my soul that writing is for me, right? So why haven't I been publishing my writing? I mean, don't get me wrong. I have been writing plenty, but nobody saw anything. Nothing was being published. I deleted it, I burnt it, I threw it in the trash. Why? I really felt a big pull here. I asked myself, why the hell am I not an author? I sat with that feeling for a really long time. I really wanted to pay attention here, and the longer I sat, the more I noticed that my body started to hurt in a big way. I have dealt with chronic pain for the majority of my life. This was the first time that I started viewing it as a tool and a way to help me instead of this devastating thing that was holding me back. Don't worry, I will get one of these about pain for you too. But for now, I want to know, why the hell was I not an author? Why hadn't I been trying? Why did I never reach my dream? Or really ever even try? I started thinking about my favorite day of the year, and then I realized it didn't stay my favorite day. Why did I stop loving it after fourth grade? If you read my very first published book, The Accident: How to Shake the Shit Out of Your Life, then you know. I'm all about finding the lessons in everything. This story was the beginning of me finding forgiveness towards myself. I shed so many tears through writing this, reading this. I let go of so many big emotions. The more I healed, the lighter I felt. And the lighter I felt, the more I realized I am not the only one that went through something like this. This story can shake things up. This story is powerful. This story is mine to tell for a reason. This story. If this story hits you in the feels, sparks something for you, takes you back to a time in your life where these big feelings happened to you, hear them, feel them. Know that you are not alone. You are not to blame. Once we start to acknowledge our stories, we can learn to accept them. We can heal them. We can grow from them. Your story is yours and yours alone. It is powerful. It is impactful. It is needed. I hope this story sparks something, connects you to a time in your life that needs a little love, and helps you through it. Life isn't always fair, but that doesn't mean it can't still always be beautiful. Before we jump into starting the actual book, I want to tell you a little bit about this intro. I really did write, and I still, to this day, have so many things that are written for y'all and that I wrote for me and that I knew were meant to come to life. But writing is, at least for me, a very difficult process. It's not the actual writing that is hard. It is shaping together the perfect book. The thing that feels perfect just as is in my soul. And reading this is definitely making me want to write another one because I do actually, I probably have it already all written, the couple of books that I have been feeling pulled towards. But now it's a matter of going back and digging through all of my old work. And the thing about writing for me is, you'll see in this story, I go right back to that time, how I felt, who I was, that character is how I look at myself. Because certainly I'm not the same as I was back when this was all happening, but she still lives within me. And I feel it in a way that I can't, it's very hard to flip back and forth between there and then living my current present reality. I have to have the space to be able to dive all in. And that's been tough over the last few years. But I am adjusting and I am making it so that I do have the freedom to dive back in. And one thing you'll notice about Young Writers Day, this is all written around elementary school, early junior high, and I write from a place of who I was then. I let that version of myself come out. So some things will sound very young. Some things will sound like a kid wrote them, because although I wrote it, the kid in me that was going through this, that didn't have the voice then, is totally what wrote this book. It's what I needed to heal. And I did a lot of research before I wrote this book, and I dove back into my old bins. I talked to old friends, all of it. And the thing that is the most shocking still to this day to me is that the proof around it is that this all really happened. I just sometimes can't believe it because of the heartache and the pain that came with all of these things. And yet my stories from Young Writers Day changed from puppies and love and friendships to scary trolls that tried to murder all of my friends and myself. And my friends had similar stories. And my friends that I write about in this book knew exactly what I was talking about, without any prompts, without any hashing it out first. I just said one word and they knew exactly what I meant. And it made me realize that this has stayed with all of us. This has affected all of us. And I can see it all over our lives. And that's why I knew it was so important to read this book. All right, y'all, let's dive in. Young Writers Day. Fourth grade was when life really started to change for me. I had my first run-in with a really awful teacher. She had been there forever, and she was part of the teachers' union. I didn't know what that meant then, but I heard it thrown around a lot as a kid. She seemed to be untouchable. One day, I watched her scream in the face of one of my classmates. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My brain couldn't even quite comprehend it. He was sitting in his chair, and she had leaned in, gripping the back of his chair, screaming at him for disrupting class. I saw her slam a kid up against the wall. I saw her push kids. I heard her say mean, hateful things to other teachers, to other students. If this was a Disney movie, she would definitely be the villain. Before I met her, I was lucky, really lucky. School was my favorite place before I met her. Meeting her was the first time I ever remember feeling afraid of an adult. I never imagined it would be a teacher. Teachers and police officers were supposed to be the good guys. We were taught that at home, at school, in the movies, on TV. They were safe. We could go to them if we were lost, scared, struggling, anything. Until one day, she came along, and everything that I had ever learned felt like a lie. One day, the kids in my class were talking about how scary she was. We had all noticed the shift. We were getting more nervous each day about going to her class. We were getting more bad days than good ones. We all knew we needed to do something, but we didn't know what. In her class, when we finished our work, we had the option to go over to the reading corner and get a book as long as we weren't disrupting the kids that were still working. I loved it. It allowed me to get up and move around a little and then get lost in a book. I always hoped that I was done early so that I could read. And this time, I was lucky and was one of the first ones done. I usually wasn't one of the first ones done because I'd spend time double checking my work, but this time I felt really confident about it. I stood up from my seat and walked to her desk. I handed her my assignment. I was so proud, so excited. She didn't reach for it. She didn't look up. Instead, with a disgusted tone, she said, "There is no way you have finished this. Did you guess?" Obviously, she didn't realize it was me standing here. I mean, she hadn't looked up. Once she saw it was me, it would make sense. So I did that thing that you do where you kind of duck down and move your body around trying to get into her line of sight. But she still didn't look or take my paper. Awkward. Now I honestly didn't know what to do. So me being me, I thought to myself, I know, I'll make a joke. I know, right? A joke with Cruella de Vil. I responded to her question by starting with a ha, followed by a sarcastic, yeah, I just guessed. But I said it like, duh, you know I didn't guess. Obviously, I didn't guess. I never guess. I am always prepared. Quit pulling my leg over here and take my paper so that I can go read. Here's where we get it all back on track. She looked up. She realized it was me. We laughed. She apologized. She apologized to the class and told us a story about this really tough thing that she was going through in her life. We all understood. Some slow instrumental music came on. We all hugged. She was never mean again. The end. That is what I hoped would happen next. I watched a lot of Full House, Boy Meets World, Growing Pains, Saved by the Bell. If it had a very obvious lesson and some sappy tunes, count me in. I loved everything about it. And I knew that was the way that life was really supposed to be. That is the way that my life should always be. I felt that in my soul. That feel good everything. Even the bad moments weren't bad. They learned, they were honest, they moved forward. That was what real life was. It was all I wanted. More of that feeling. That was not what I was about to get. She did not take it as a joke. She slowly looked up and locked eyes with me. She told me in a very low, very authoritative tone, "Take it back to your seat now." I stood there, quiet, confused. I was nervous. Everything felt wrong. I genuinely didn't know what to do. I was really done. Why couldn't I hand it in? I just wanted to read. The minute my brain realized that this was taking away from my reading time, I was angry, and my mouth opened before I could even process what I should do. Wait, what? I'm just joking. I didn't guess. I'm really done. She just sat there, not moving, eyes locked on mine. It was weird. I didn't know what to do. So I did what I wanted to do. I wanted to read. I set the paper down on her desk without breaking eye contact, and I turned to walk away to get a book. She stood up and grabbed my wrist. It happened so fast, I didn't even see it coming. She caught me completely off guard, and then she squeezed. It shocked me more than it hurt at first. I sucked in my breath and held it as I stared at her hand wrapped around my wrist. What was even happening? I just wanted to read. She told me to pick up my paper and take it back to my desk. I was still watching her hand wrapped around my wrist. That's all I could focus on. My brain couldn't make sense of why it was there. It shouldn't be there. This was wrong. She jerked my arm down towards her, causing me to lose my stance and step forward. That shook me out of my fixation on her hand and back into the situation. I watched her lips move as she said, "There is no way that you could possibly be done with this test." This moment right here changed everything for me. Before this moment, I loved school. I loved studying. I sat at the desk in my room that had been passed down through generations of my family every single night. I loved that desk. I loved the story of that desk. I loved working on homework, my stories, and diving into learning more about the things I had spent my day hearing about. I took it all in. I was constantly wanting to play school with my friends or asking people to quiz me on spelling words. I would even jump rope, skip it, play on the monkey bars, and incorporate spelling games or try to see how long I could go making history facts or math problems into raps. I loved to see how far I could get. Up until this very moment, I never knew that anyone other than my brother ever viewed me as anything other than incredibly smart. She had no reason to think that I was stupid, unless maybe I wasn't doing as well as I thought. Maybe she just didn't tell me I was behind. Maybe I was really far behind and didn't know it. Was everything a lie? Nothing made any sense. I was frantically trying to make it make sense. The skin around my wrist started burning. It drew my attention back to her hand, still holding my wrist. Why was she grabbing me so hard? It really hurt. I had to get out of here. I tried to pull away, but she wouldn't let go. I started with, "But..." She slammed her free hand down on the desk and squeezed my wrist harder. My wrist was throbbing. I couldn't hold my breath through it anymore. I quickly let out and yelled out, "Ow! Let go!" I tried to rip my wrist away, but she didn't budge. Instead, she moved in closer to my face, pulling me in towards her with my wrist. Very quietly, yet crystal clearly, she told me, "Take my fucking paper back to my desk now." I was stunned. I couldn't move. I sucked in my breath again and held it. Some of the other kids noticed it was happening. You could feel the tension in the room full of kids trying to watch, wanting to help, wanting to pretend it wasn't happening, not knowing what to do. I could hear them shuffling around in their seats. I knew without looking that most of them were pretending to be hyper-focused so they could maybe prevent whatever was happening from happening like I had done so many times before. I stood there, staring at her face, air sucked in, mouth closed. She let go of my wrist. As badly as I wanted to shake it off, pull it away, wrap my own hand around it to keep it safe, I didn't. Without breaking eye contact, I slowly reached for and picked up my paper. I turned and walked back to my seat. I slouched down in my chair and slowly let the breath out. I folded my arms on the desktop and put my head down, facing the board, away from her. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't read now, and there was no way that I was going to fake working on this test. I made sure that there wasn't a single second that she thought I was working on it. She was going to know when she graded it that I aced it. She was going to know she was wrong. I was angry. I was really upset. It was one of the first times I remember feeling anxious. I didn't know what it was then, but I used to describe it as wanting to jump out of my skin in a bad way. I wanted to jump out of my body, and I couldn't. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I would start to feel like ants were dancing under my skin, up my arms, up my shoulders, down my spine, anywhere. Nothing was safe. And then it would itch and start to burn like they had poison on their feet. I was spacing off, thinking about how bad I just wanted to go home, when I had heard a knock on my desk. I looked up and saw my friend. He had his assignment in his hand. He was on his way to hand it in, but passed by my desk to make a face and say, "Yikes." He wanted me to know it was okay. He knew she was wrong. He saw what happened. He was trying to be there for me, and any other time I would have hugged him and appreciated him so much. This time, though, I was scared. I shook my head no, but it was too late. She was already up, and she had him pinned against the wall in the reading corner. She started quietly talking to him, and it was weird. Her face was too close to his face, like she had just done to me. I couldn't stop watching. I needed to make sure he was okay. I didn't understand this. The yelling, I understood. She was angry. I know people yell sometimes when they are angry. But the low tone in her voice, the words she chose, it felt dangerous and not in a fun way. My tiny body was screaming internally that this was not right. The look on my friend's face, I'll never forget it. He confirmed what my body knew. I saw the fear all over his face. The other kids looked and then looked away, just like they did with me. They were back to shifting around in their seats, but staying focused on the task at hand. They didn't want to direct any attention to themselves. I could tell that some of them were done and were just waiting for the bell to ring. Some were erasing answers and rewriting them in. They weren't even going to try to get a book today. I remember thinking, what a stupid day this is turning out to be. My friend was new, and he was in trouble all the time from the minute he walked in. He was a good kid, though. It didn't make any sense in my brain. He made me laugh all the time. He was sweet. He was so nice. He was creative. I loved being around him. He was one of my very best friends, and I let everyone know right away that he was one of us. He fit right in. It was like he had been there forever. The kids were on board. The teachers were so quick to label him as a bad kid. They didn't want to help him. They just wanted to tear him apart. I hated it. How could they not see the same boy that I saw? Seeing him pinned up against the wall by an adult made me angry like I had never felt before. I was mad about what she did to me, but I had never experienced anything like this. I wanted to hit her, shove her away from him, pummel her with my fists until she let him go. I wanted to get up and scream fire into her face. I saw her stand straight up and walk back to her desk. He stood there for a few seconds. With his eyes on the floor, he walked back to his desk. He laid his head down and was quiet the rest of the time. We all sat quietly and waited for the bell to ring, and we all prayed for the time to move fast. This afternoon would be better. Recess was soon. The break would do us all some good. All would be forgotten. We just had to hang on a little bit longer. Whew, y'all. My wrist started burning when I was reading that, and I started getting a hive right on the back of my neck. My stomach got tight. My body felt sore. This book is so important because the things that happened to us, the scary things that we didn't have any control over at the time, we didn't know how in the world to have any control over it. It all stays with us. Let's keep in mind that I wrote this book. I've talked about this book. I have reread this book numerous times. And it still affects my body negatively. After all the work I've done, it still takes me back. Trauma and damage that is done, it's not just one layer that you peel off. And then it's like, poof, everything is fixed, everything is fine. Every time I read this again and every time I feel these feelings, I heal another layer because I allow it to come to surface. I allow myself to understand that it's still there. It's still with me. This is not something that just has an easy fix. People harming you, people scaring you, people hurting you, people especially that you're supposed to trust, people you don't know that they can even be dangerous. That's not something that just leaves us. And it's somewhere that needs extra grace, extra love, extra kindness from within. External sources aren't going to heal that kind of pain. They're not going to heal what you went through. It can't, because typically these external sources, they're not going to be able to change it for you. They're not the one that did it. And even if they are the one that did it, everything's different. It's not the same moment that it happened in. It's complicated. That hurt is complex and it runs deep. It intertwines in our makeup and in everything. I'm so glad I'm reading this. This feels so right. I'm going to pick up tomorrow from where I left off. And just remember, if this sparks something in you, if this starts taking you to places in your own story that you're realizing you have things that need to come to the surface, let them. Feel it. Feel what you felt. Allow your body to have a real response to what you're going through, what's coming up. That is how we start to give our body what we really need. And that is how we start to let this off. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. Let's make this a beautiful day. I'm looking forward to reading to you tomorrow. And remember, nothing meant for you will miss you.